The Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup is proudly brought to you by Sunbet, Bridgestone, the tyre of choice, VAG Automotive Centre Centurion, EBC Brakes, GoZone Water, Seal Pro, Pump Elect CC, and Torcraft, tools for every job. Welcome back to Red Star Raceway for round 2, race 2 of the 2026 Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup, which once again forms part of the Extreme Festival. A massive crowd in attendance, both young and old alike, enjoying the action here for round 2 of the 2026 Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup. A quick phone call in between the races, and if race 1 was anything to go by, we were in for a big treat come race 2. All smiles, all laughs in the Sunbet ZX10 Masters paddock as always. A little bit of cleaning as well, as shown there by Reggie Seal. He would be hoping for a much better outing in race 2. A little bit of modifications being done in between races, and a little bit of hydration as well, thanks to GoZone Water. The number 3 machine of Alfie Swanepoel not having a great time at all here at Red Star Raceway for round 2. A disappointing end in race 1 where he pulled into the pits. He'd be hoping for more on his HX Consulting Services AS Racing Bikewise ZX10R come race 2. Speaking about hoping for more, and so would Stephen Golgozzi. Unfortunately, Stephen Golgozzi had to retire early on in race 1 with some mechanical issues. However, the Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup family rallied around him and were busy prepping the spare bike of Hein McMahon to get him out and some much needed points for race 2.
How many laps you doing? Doing all 10.
And there we go, you heard it from Ian Harwood himself. The race would be 9 plus 1 laps, so 10 laps in total for race 2. The riders prepared themselves mentally and physically by putting on their gloves, their leathers, their helmets. The visors would come down and the gloves would come off. Who would come out on top? Could Damion Purificati pull off the double? Only time would tell as the riders made their way out of pit lane. Who are you betting on for race 2 with sunbet.co.za? The crowd looked on as the riders took to their grid positions for the final time of asking. Damion Purificati on pole, and yep, where is the second place man of Hein McMahon? The number 4 taking up his grid position a little bit late, warming up those EBC brakes perhaps, warming up those Bridgestone tyres, getting ready for what was to come. As the riders made their way out on their warm-up lap, let's take a look at the grid positions. Damion Purificati on pole with a 156.326 lap time, ahead of Hein McMahon in second, Keith Agliotti in third, James Barson in fourth, Trevor Westman in fifth, Henk Kruger in sixth, Reggie Seal in seventh, Adi van Dalen in eighth, and Peter Delport in ninth position. Dirk Stahls in 10th position, ahead of Byron Rothwell in 11th, Renatus van der Kerk in 12th, Jaya Cruz in 13th, Robert Ferreira in 14th, Tyrant Piper in 15th, ahead of Alfie Swanepoel in 16th. He'll be hoping for more in race 2. Stephen Golgozzi in 17th, ahead of Ian Harwood in 18th, and Nico Ziexman in 19th position. Under starters order as the marshal walks off with the red flag. The lights will come on and the lights will go off, and away we go. And Damion Purificati with once again a great start from pole position. He grabbed the whole shot ahead of Hein McMahon. A much better start this time for the number 4 as he beat the number 31 of Keith Agliotti into turn 1. The riders make their way down that little short straight into turn 2. Damion Purificati ahead of Hein McMahon. That is 31 of Keith Agliotti. James Barson on the inside there of Henk Kruger. And then Reggie Seal with a great start as well. He was ahead of Peter Delport. And Adi van Dalen on the 469 was closely followed by Byron Rothwell on the 37. As the rest of the field made their way through, that was Jaya Cruz as well. He was getting followed by Alfie Swanepoel. So a better start this time for Alfie Swanepoel. And you can see the plain white bike there of Stephen Golgozzi on that lone machine as we take a ride on board with Reggie Seal And a great start by Reggie, as you can see, a bird's eye rider's view thanks to the Insta360 Go 3S camera, and a great start from the number 82 Siemens motorcycle of Henk Kruger. He got ahead of James Barson, the number 67, the veteran rider, taking none of it, throwing his ZX10R up the inside. He'd obviously want to do that. He doesn't want those three riders ahead of him to break free and pull that gap, which is quite easy to do here at Red Star. And once you have that gap, it becomes utterly almost impossible to close that gap unless you've got quite a turn of pace. Speaking about turn of pace, and that looks like a move, not quite, from Adi van Dalen on his good mate Peter Dalport. They were locked in battle. Great to have Peter Dalport out for round 2 of the 2026 Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup. As the riders made their way well within the infield section here at Red Star Raceway, a very tight and technical section. It's important to warm those Bridgestone tyres up, warm those EBC pads up as you flick the bike from left to right. You want to ensure that you have enough heat in those tyres. Very easy to lose the front here at Red Star Raceway. You carry a lot of lean angle, a lot of corner speed as well. So very important to get those tyres and brakes up to proper working temperature. James Barson was looking at doing that. He was now on the back of Keith Agliotti, and those riders were putting a little bit of a gap now on the number 82 of Henk Kruger. Reggie Seal, the veteran rider, still doing a great job there of keeping ahead of Peter Dalport and Adi van Dalen. Adi van Dalen would have liked to get a much better start. So he's got a few riders to get through if he wants to engage in a battle once again with Henk Kruger as he did in race 1. And there we have it, up the inside of his good mate Peter Dalport in turn 1. That is Adi van Dalen on the VAG Automotive Center Centurion ZX10R. A great move. Adi, one of the last of the late breakers, and he got that move done. Henk Kruger ahead of Reggie Seal, and there's the 469 of Adi van Dalen and the 110 of Peter Dalport. Great to have Peter back with us for round 2. This is of course round 2, but it's round 1 for Peter Dalport and for a few other riders, including this man, the 91 of Stephen Golgotzi, on that lone bike, that beautiful white ZX10R. That is Hein McMahon spare bike, red front wheel, black rear wheel, white fairing, and a beautiful HAC R1 Brandlander replica helmet there for Stephen Golgotzi. So it looks like no issues for Stephen Golgotzi. He was in a dice there with Ian Harwood, and also a brilliant ride, of course, by Nico Zietsman as well. So the number 79 of Nico Zietsman having a much better outing here in race 2. He was on course for setting PB lap times. And speaking about PB lap times, that was Henk Kruger, and Reggie Seal still doing an amazing job hanging onto the coattails of the Siemens Racing ZX10R. However, the number 469 of Adi van Dalen was now closing up on the 166 of Reggie Seal, and he would be looking for a way through. They were now starting to pull a little bit of a gap on Peter Dalport, and here we have the beautiful livery of the Siemens bike. That is, of course, Henk Kruger. Damion Purificati once again stretching his legs out front on his Amalgam Welding and Lift Racing ZX10R. Hein McMahon in second place, and this time it was also a great battle for third, and that was closing up now. That was the number 31 of Keith Agliotti, and he was ahead of the 67 of James Barson, although the gaps were pretty much equal between second, third and fourth. The battle was heating up though for fifth place. Henk Kruger on the inside, 469 of Adi van Dalen, the VAG machine making his way forward again, this time up the inside of Reggie Seal, as we get a bird's eye view again on board with Reggie Seal down the back straight, screaming up to fifth, sixth gear on that ZX10R, braking way past the 150 meter mark, and there goes Adi van Dalen on his VAG Automotive Center Centurion ZX10R. Another lap done and dusted here at Red Star Raceway, and it was still Damion Purificati ahead of Hein McMahon on his Expo Security Solutions K9 Law Enforcement Paneltech SA ZX10R, and he was ahead of Keith Agliotti on the TNB Global Retro Race Bar EBC Brakes ZX10R, and James Barson was also having a great outing, first of your veteran riders on the Pro-Proof Waterproofing and Painting Steel Monkey Clothing Back ZX10R, and further down the field, you can see Peter Dalport there, and that is the 37 of Byron Rothwell. Byron Rothwell having a great ride as well, and he was ahead of the 57 of Renatus van der Kek. Great to have Renatus back with us. Jaya Cruz was also having a great outing on his Extreme Bikes Firm Faith Red Bull ZX10R. Great to have Jaya back. He's battled with injury as of late, as Jaya, so good to have him back in the saddle. And that's Stephen Golgotti ahead of Ian Harwood and Nico Zitzman. That was a nice battle, a 3-bike battle that was shaping up. And as you can see behind them, it was Alfie Swanepoel, who once again looked like he was having issues on his ZX10R. So, the battle for fifth, and as you were in race 1, that is Henk Kruger ahead of Adi van Dalen. He had now closed the gap. Reggie Seal and Peter Dalport looked like he was closing in, as were these two riders as well. That is Byron Rothquell on his Mag Magic Pool Warehouse, Alco Electrical Alvetis ZX10R. He was ahead of Renatus van der Kerk as well, who was also having a great outing. So good to have Renatus back with us. And he had a turn of pace, did Renatus, around Red Star Raceway this weekend, and he was looking for a much better outing than he had in race 1. As the man behind him was also closing up, that is Dirk Stolz, the number 56 Masters rider. He was closing up, setting impressive lap times was Dirk, 202.2 lap times, and Byron Rothquell ahead was setting 202.5s, as was Renatus van der Kerk in the 203 markers. So he was doing his best to close up and possibly get a top 10, which would be an amazing result for the number 56 of Dirk Stolz, the number 4 of Hein McMahon. At the end of the back straight, braking hard, he was still keeping the two riders behind him. That is, of course, Keith Agliotti on the 31 and James Parson on the 67. And the fifth place battle now a little bit further back than they would like to be from that fourth place battle was Henk Kruger. He was riding super and ultra defensive to keep the 469 of Adi van Dalen behind. And as you can see there, that looked like a move that was going on heading into turn 1, but no moves at the front. The 88 of Damion Purificati ahead of the number 4 of Hein McMahon. He was also riding that new ZX10R this weekend, a new livery and a new motorcycle as well for the Masters rider. Adi van Dalen on that beautiful VAG Automotive Centre Centurion bike. There's Byron Rothquell. That was Renatus van der Kerk. And here was Dirk Stolz, all action, all elbows out, sliding those elbows, hanging off that ZX10R. And here's a 60 of Trevor Westman, who was making his way through the field after having to start from pit lane. Ian Harwood is having a much better outing this time around. He had pulled a little bit of a gap on Stephen Golgotti now and Nico Zitzman, who was behind him. So a much better outing this time from Ian Harwood, setting decent lap times in the 204 brackets, a 204.9, so a lot faster than he went during race 1. Speaking about a lot faster, and that is the number 57 of Renatus van der Kerk on the brakes. How late do you like it? Closing in on the back of Byron Rothquell ahead of him, and they were closing now on that battle for 5th, 6th, 7th position. Looking good as always. That is not Barney, no, that is Byron Rothquell. Easy to pick out from the crowd on that beautiful purple ZX10R as they come through the fast left-hander into the right, which will lead them onto the back straight. You can see Renatus van der Kerk lining Byron up, trying to get that drive, and let's see if he does it. Hein McMahon, and that is third place Keith Agliotti, and it looked like now he was getting closed down by James Parson. And speaking about closing down, Adi van Dalen on the inside of Henk Kruger. How late do you like it on the brakes? A beautiful move that's promoting Adi van Dalen up now to 5th position. 6th place was Henk Kruger, and the battle for 7th behind, that was still Reggie Seal, and up front the number 88 Damion Purificati sliding that rear Bridgestone tire. It's literally begging for mercy, but the tires were holding up well. Much hotter temperatures than we had in race 1. Not so many damp patches around as well, so pretty much completely dry racetrack. And Damion Purificati still doing 156 lap times, so impressive from the man out front, who never really had to push this hard, but he wanted to extend his championship lead, and the only way to really do that was to take victory. Stylish, smooth, silky smooth, and pinpoint precise. That was Damion Purificati out front as he headed through the fast left into the right-hander, which would take him onto the back straight. He was looking good. He was looking unstoppable. Would he be crowned the Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup champion in 2026? Too early? I don't think so. But this battle behind was also raging on, and it looked like it was Jaya Cruz who was having a great outing. He was still ahead of Robert Ferreira. These two riders We're swapping positions left, right, and center. Great to have Rob Ferreira with us in the 2026 ZX10 Masters Cup. Trevor Westman through the fast left as well. Behind him, though, it was that battle. Dryo Cruz, Robert Ferreira, nothing between these two riders. And it was also a Class C man against a Class B man. Not that that matters. No one cares about classes when they're out on the track. As we can see here, that is Class B man, Henk Kruger, ahead of Class A man. That is, of course, the 469 of Adi van Dalen, the 79 of Nico Zietsman. As we said, was having a great outing. He was setting impressive lap times, was Nico Zietsman, on his LNC Projects ZX10R. And that is the 67 of James Barson. He was also setting impressive lap times, was James, still in the 58 brackets in race 2. A 158.634 from the leading veteran rider. So he was leading Class C. The number 4 of Han McMahon was leading Class A, and this man was leading overall and Class B with that beautiful slow-mo wheelie on his ZX10R. Trevor Westman was also setting a PB lap time around Red Star Raceway, a 158.9 for the Project 60 SA team ZX10R, and he was closing in on that big group of riders ahead of him, so perhaps something to salvage for Trevor Westman still. And a man who doesn't have a lot of experience, as you spoke about in race 1 around the Red Star Raceway circuit, especially this way around. But Damion Purificati out front, showing all of that experience he has around Red Star Raceway, as was the number 4 of Han McMahon, looking good on his new bike. He will only be getting quicker as he gets it set up and adapts to that bike. The 31 of Keith Agliotti, ahead of the 67 of James Barson. I know James was utterly disappointed in race 1, not getting those top 3 overall positions, so he was looking at digging deep and getting his claws into the 31 of Keith Agliotti. But the lap times these guys were setting all in the 1 minute 58s. A 58.8 from Han McMahon, a 58.7 from Keith Agliotti, and a 58.6 from James Barson. Those were their fastest laps of the race so far, so you can really see nothing to choose between these riders. Through the infield section once again, and you can see the number 4 of Han McMahon hanging off his bike, trying to get that lean angle, trying to get the optimum grip from those Bridgestone tires, which have now done the qualifying session in the morning, race 1 and race 2, but these riders were still setting PB lap times, showing just how good the grip was from those Bridgestone tires, and a grip they would need, as they looked like they were closing in on Han now. So the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th was now heating up nicely in the closing stages of the race, as we have a fall for, that is the number 57 of Renatus van der Kade. Not the way he wanted to end his first round back. And where is that? That's a strange place to crash. Looks like his bike is still on the track. That is the fast left, and just before coming onto the back straights, and you can see there Stephen Golgotzi and Nico Zietsman narrowly missing out on Renatus' bike as he tries to pick that motorcycle up and get it out the way. No marshals to be seen as yet. Found a little bit of a run from the marshals hut though to that point. A very strange place to crash. Looked like he might have high-sided coming out of the right-hander and flicked that bike and maybe landed on the entry to the left-hander, but luckily he wasn't collected. Luckily the bike wasn't collected as well. As we go back out front though, disappointing for Renatus, but promising for the 166 of Reggie Seal. Although late on in the race, he was getting closed down by Byron Rothwell and the number 60 of Trevor Westman, who was still making his way through the field. As the riders made their way onto the little back straight here at Red Star Raceway, you're generally up to about 3rd, 4th, sometimes even 5th gear, and then hard on the brakes at the 150 meter mark, and past that as well for some of the faster riders. And you can see Renatus van der Kade, his bike's still stricken there on the racetrack, so very disappointing that the marshals haven't got to that bike as of yet and removed it from the track, or perhaps put out any red flag there. I mean, luckily the riders pretty much know where their bike is now, but still, I mean, we've seen accidents happen in the past, so not great reactions there from the marshals here at Red Star Raceway. Doesn't seem to be causing the riders too much of an issue now. That is Ian Harwood. He was having a great ride. He had now pulled a little bit of an advantage out on Stephen Golgotzi on that borrowed machine, getting some much needed seat time was Stephen, and he was under pressure from the 79 of Nico Zietsman in the second race here at Red Star Raceway. PB lap times, as we said before, as Damion Purificati made his way onto the main straight to start the final lap with quite a big advantage, so the win was his to lose, but it was still all up for grabs. The battle for second, third and fourth as it raged on in race 1, as it continues to rage on right to the very end here at Red Star Raceway. In race 2 was Han McMahon in second, Keith Agliotti in third, and the number 67 of James Barson. As we look at this battle there, it looked like a move on the inside perhaps, forcing both riders wide, and that is the number 469, Eddie van Dalen, Hen Kruger and Peter Dalport right on their heels, looking to take advantage. And he must 3 abreast, almost going into turn 1. How do you like that? That is what we've become accustomed to and used to here in the Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup. Hen Kruger doing his utmost. You can see that defensive line there going into turn 2 for Hen Kruger ahead of Eddie van Dalen and Peter Dalport. I mean, these 3 riders, you could still throw a blanket over them during this stage of the race, the final lap. And I mean, that battle for 5th was as hot as you'd like. Down the back straight for the final time of asking, it was Damion Purificati on his amalgam welding shop and the Love Racing ZX10R who was looking set to take victory and the double for the day. A beautiful response from Damion Purificati as he took the checkered flag. A great double victory here for round 2 of the 2026 Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup. And second place, Han McMahon. Third place, Keith Agliotti. And fourth place and first in Class C, James Barson. And a final move there on the inside, final lap, final set of corners on the inside. Eddie van Dalen was coming through with the Hen Kruger, like it or not. A beautiful move, 5th place for Eddie van Dalen. 6th place, and still a great ride from Hen Kruger. And then Reggie Seal late on. Was that a mistake? Reggie Seal ahead of Byron Rothwell and Trevor Westman there. And Peter Dalport, a little bit of a mistake there late on from Peter Dalport as we take a ride on board with Reggie Seal. And that's Trevor Westman around the outside, heading onto the back straight. And looked like slipstream there from Reggie Seal, getting the better drive. And then that is Byron Rothwell ahead. Does he? No, he does. He does. On the inside, Reggie Seal. What a move from the veteran rider, showing that he was going all in. It was all or nothing for the 166. He had a great ride to finish ahead of Byron Rothwell on the number 37. And Trevor Westman with a great ride from pit lane. He took a well-deserved 9th position there, did Trevor Westman. Damion Purificati, some much-needed goes on water, and there's the man of the moment. Still couldn't quite believe it, good Reggie Seal, and I'm sure he was thirsty, and we are thirsty for more. Well, I don't even know where to begin. Is that Mark van den Berg saying to Reggie, how did you do that, man? How did you do that? And there is the number 79 of Nico Zietsman, James Barson as well, just explaining he was trying his utmost. A big thumbs up there from Nico Zietsman. Eddie van Dalen just explaining to Hen Kruger, listen, I had to go, I had to push you wide. And the 24 of Ian Harwood, a great sip of water, a great dunking of water there for the 76 of Jaya Cruz and Stephen Golgotzi, who finally got a race under his belt in 2026. Also, a much needed dash of goes on water there for Damion Purificati. And camaraderie, as we said, as always in the Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup. This time it was Han McMahon who got the better of Keith Agliotti. Peter Dalport as well with his great mate, Eddie van Dalen. As we take a look at the results for round 2, race 2. Damion Purificati taking the victory ahead of Han McMahon. Keith Agliotti in 3rd. James Barson taking 4th and 1st in Class C ahead of Eddie van Dalen. Hen Kruger, Reggie Seal in 7th. Byron Rothwell in 8th. And Trevor Westman coming through to 9th position. Peter Dalport dropping back to 10th at the end of the race, ahead of Dirk Stoltz in 11th, Robert Ferreira in 12th, Tyron Piper in 13th, Jaya Cruz in 14th, Stephen Golgotzi in 15th, ahead of Ian Harwood and Nico Zietsman. That unfortunate crash for Renatus van der Kerk and that retirement for Alfie Swanepoel leaves them down in the bottom end of the field. Keith Agliotti on your TNB Global, Ridgeway Race Bar ZX10R, EBC Brakes as well, of course, doing their job today. A fantastic outing, a great 2nd place overall in race 1, and then 3rd after a hard-fought battle in race 2. How was it for you?
It was awesome. It was so much fun. Had a great race with Slucky, and James was there the whole time. I was very surprised by him. Well done to him. And Damion just checked out. Yeah, he was untouchable this weekend.
Well, there we go. Look, a fantastic ride, fantastic effort. The bike's looking good. New sponsors on board, of course, for 2026. So, yeah, best of luck, and we'll see you at round 3.
Thank you very much.
Class C honours for the day at prize giving went to James Parson, ahead of Reggie Seal in second and Jaya Cruz in third. Class B was all about Damion Purificati in first, ahead of Henk Kruger in second and Byron Rothwell in third. Class A was all about Hein McMahon on the number 4, ahead of Keith Agliotti in second and Adi van Dalen in third place. While your Pump Elect CC rider of the day went to Dirk Stolz. See you all at round 3. The Sunbet ZX10 Masters Cup is proudly brought to you by Sunbet, Bridgestone, the tyre of choice, VAG Automotive Centre Centurion, EBC Brakes, GoZone Water, Seal Pro, Pump Elect CC, and Torcraft. Tools for every job.